What is happening, y'all? So excited that you are here to join me for the podcast today. It is our first official interview on Fit After 40. And man, oh man, did we hit the jackpot with our guest. Michelle White, a certified nutritional therapy practitioner and host of the Inspired Wellness podcast. She is coming on today to talk all about sleep. So if you are like me and sleep is one of those things where you know you need it, but you don't know how to get it, this episode is for you. One of the things that I love about this conversation with Michelle, other than the fact that she's just a delightful human being, is that she is passionate about this. And she not only just brings to light why sleep is so important, which I do think is kind of the bedrock of where we see change, but she helps give actionable tips that don't totally overhaul your life. Stay tuned. My favorite tip is getting into PJs a little bit earlier than you'd expect. Point is, stick around. You are going to want to grab a pen and a piece of paper for this. I can't wait to go back and re-listen. I learned a lot from Michelle. So without further ado, let's dive in. I cannot wait for you to experience this interview. Woohoo! But first, welcome to Fit After 40, the Women's Fitness and Health Revolution podcast. Kinsey here, certified personal trainer and menopause coaching specialist. I've worked with hundreds of clients over the past 12 years and know firsthand how intimidating starting a fitness routine can be, especially in perimenopause. My goal is to teach women in midlife and beyond how to feel strong and confident in their bodies and to help them live the healthy life they deserve, free of pain, heart disease, dementia, frailty, you name it. In this show, you'll get action steps you can take today, backed by the most up-to-date research and thousands of hours of practical in-gym experience. The best time to get started may have been 20 years ago, but the second best time to get started is today. Hello, and welcome to Fit After 40, Women's Fitness and Health Revolution podcast. This is a very exciting episode, more exciting than usual because it is our first interview episode, and I am just delighted to be welcoming on Michelle White. Michelle, hello.
Hello, Kinsey. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much, and thank you for also just like rolling with the punches as I figure out all the technology for this interview. You are amazing. Yay. A little bit about Michelle. She is a certified nutritional therapy practitioner and the host of Inspired Wellness podcast. 10 out of 10 recommend listening. I've been listening to it for a while, and the way she talks about the perimenopause, postmenopause transition is both educational and very relatable. So I'll talk more about that in a second. This podcast is where she helps women, especially those navigating perimenopause and menopause, understand what's happening in their bodies and how to support hormonal balance, energy, and long-term health. Michelle specializes in a whole body root cause approach to wellness with a strong focus on blood sugar regulation, nervous system support, gut health, and sustainable lifestyle shifts for midlife women. Her work centers on helping women stop blaming themselves for symptoms like anxiety, fatigue, weight gain, and mood changes, and instead feel informed, empowered, and supported through this transition. Through her podcast, one-on-one client work, and educational content, Michelle is passionate about normalizing conversations around perimenopause and giving women practical tools to feel better in their bodies at every stage of their life. Like I said, I've been listening to her podcast for a while. There's so much I love about your podcast, but one of my favorite things is that you and your co-host just have this like beautiful relationship of practitioner and then a woman who's just living life going through it. So I feel like it's such a great way to bring listeners into sort of like a shared experience. I would love to hear a little bit more before we dive into our topic today about how you got drawn to where you are today, what maybe inspired you to start your podcast, just a little bit of background.
Sure. Thank you so much. And that was a great introduction. I appreciate it. And I love having Tab as my co-host on the Inspired Wellness podcast because she is the voice of the listener. So it's really fun. So I think you're going to really enjoy having the interview conversations too, because it kind of gives that you get to be the voice of the listener when you're interviewing people, which is so fun. But a little bit about me. I actually did not start my journey in the wellness world, although I have always been kind of more fitness minded. I always was, from a young age, very focused on trying to, I always wanted to lose weight. I was never kind of the thin kid. I was always one of the bigger ones. And so I always joke that I started working out when I was 10 years old just because I had to. But really, I just always was very interested in movement and fitness and trying to stay healthy. I, went through my education actually in accounting and tax, so completely different from where I am today. But got to a point in life, when that just was no longer fulfilling me, and I stepped away from it, and I was able to really step back and rethink what I wanted to do. I was very blessed to be able to do that, and just found myself diving into health and wellness more for myself than for anything, because I really finally got to the point in life where I was like, I no longer am going to strive to be skinny. I'm going to strive to be healthy, because I have children now and I want to watch them grow up and have babies, and I want to hold my grandchildren, and I want to be at their weddings, and I want to dance when I'm there. And that just really became more of a priority for me. And then I got to a point where I had really done so much research and listened to podcasts and reading books, and I just wanted more. So I decided to, for myself, again, just go back to school and get certified in nutritional therapy. And when I was, finally finished with my certification, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to take out into the world. I had always joked in my prior career that I just helped rich people save money, and it wasn't fulfilling. I didn't like that. I always wanted to give back. And so, or just feel like I was helping people. So when I did finally get certified, I thought, this is what I'm going to do. And so I started diving into that, working one-on-one with clients. And a friend of mine who had already been podcasting for a while, we would talk all the time about it. She's health minded, and she said, you know what, let's do a podcast together. And lo and behold, that's where we ended up. So now I'm doing that, and I love talking about it. It's a way for me to keep learning. It's kind of like I'm doing continuing education every single week. Which I also believe being a lifelong learner is really important for health and longevity as well. So that's kind of where I came to present day.
Yay, I love that. I feel like there's just so much intersection between like where we started, the two of us, our relationship to health and fitness, how it's evolved to just the taking care of and supporting our bodies, the lifelong learner. I mean, it's one of the things that makes your podcast so wonderful is just the thought that you put into it. And clearly, it's not just opinion. It's you've done a lot of research and you've put the time in, which we kind of were talking about this earlier before we recorded this podcast about how there's just so much information out there now that we're starting to talk about menopause, but a lot of it's sort of misinformation or like people trying to target things. So to have your voice in there like a big shining light of truth it makes me feel more confident that women are able to find actual help and guidance. So thank you for everything you two do together. I'm so glad you decided to do the podcast.
Me too. Thank you. Same to you. Ditto.
Yay! One thing actually, just before we dive in, because I'm really excited about today's topic, but I was listening to your podcast when you were breaking down the stages of perimenopause, and I really appreciated when you were talking about some of the anxiety you were feeling when you were 37 and like looking back on it and sort of noticing that maybe that was a hormonal shift. I'm turning 38 this year, and this last year has been deeply tumultuous in terms of like anxiety and just like, it's one of those things that it was so nice to hear, because I've learned a lot now about how it can start as early as 35, but that's something that I think women hear and they're like, you're too young for it. Like this is...
Because doctors say it to them. Even my 45-year-old friends are having doctors say this to them, and keep going, but I am on a soapbox about that.
No, it's totally true. And it is, I mean, it's good to know because it is a confusing time is all that I had to say, because there is part of me that like, is it menopause? Is it, or like perimenopause? Is it the world? Is it, is it a little of both? But when you shared your story, that was something that I really resonated with and was grateful, because it can feel very confusing.
Yeah.
In a body.
Yeah, when I look back on that time, I just think if I had only known, that was back when I didn't know what perimenopause was. And who's to say when your hormones start shifting? I mean, can you say that doesn't happen until you're 42? No, that's ridiculous.
Right.
We're getting older.
Yes.
And hormones shift, and that makes a huge difference in your mind and your body. So
yes.
Just, it's awareness is, knowledge is power. And so I think the earlier it's coming, then you can start to notice even the small shifts and make meaningful impacts in your life to make yourself feel better, which is different than when you were in your early 30s.
Yes.
And so it's nice to know that.
Yeah, I love
I'm
that.
glad
So
you
thank
brought
you.
that.
That's that. I really appreciate that because, like I said, it's always, I feel like we really, and that's why I love having interview podcasts too, is that I feel like we learn so much from each other's stories. It's one thing to look at medical data and all the stats, and then it's another to hear a woman who's actually gone through it. So thank you for sharing that on your podcast because I got a lot out of it in my own
Good.
life.
Oh, good. That makes me so happy.
Okay, so I could talk to you about it all day. I could talk to you about a lot of things all day, but I'm also extremely surprised or excited for today's topic. I think that I told you on our phone call that I've been wanting to talk about sleep for a while now, but feel deeply underqualified other than like my N of one experiments. This
Hmm.
also is selfishly coming at kind of the perfect time because I feel like both my husband and I, and my mom, and honestly, a lot of my clients this week have been having a lot of issues with sleep and pretty relentless bouts of insomnia and just starting to feel kind of stressed about it. And I know that a lot of my clients feel the same way. I made a joke in a session today, like, has anyone else been not sleeping well? And one of my clients who's in her early 50s was like, I haven't slept well since I was 40. So today we're talking about sleep, how to support it, quality of sleep over quantity of sleep. And I love that both in the podcast that I listened to that you've done on this, and there were some posts on your Instagram. I was really drawn to the fact that you were kind of highlighting that maybe lack of sleep is a little inevitable at certain phases in our life. So rather than try to like shoehorn ourselves into this like 7 to 9 hours, how to focus on the quality of our sleep. Like I said, I think that I will definitely get a lot out of this, but I think also, I want to dive in starting here because I think a lot of women, especially the ones I've worked with, kind of keep sleep at the bottom of their priority list, maybe like just under or above stress management. They're like, those two we can deal with. So I'd love to just kind of start off with why is sleep so important to our health and how does that become more true in our perimenopausal and menopausal transitions?
Yeah, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic too because I've become such a sleep nerd. So I get really excited about talking about this topic. And I'd love to start with, just a little education because I do think that understanding why sleep is important really helps us prioritize it. Because like you just said, it falls to the bottom of the priority list. You cut it so you can get up and cram in a hard workout. These kind of things they're not healthy and they go against our biology and they actually go against what we are striving for. And I don't think we know that. So I wanted to, what I've learned about it, I want to share. And real quick to start, I want to mention my absolute favorite resource on this, which is the book Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. And what I love about his book is that he looks at sleep through an evolutionary lens, asking why sleep even exists at all in our lives. Because really from an evolutionary standpoint, which I always like to look at when we look at health and wellness, sleep actually seems very inconvenient. It's the only time we as humans weren't hunting, we weren't gathering, we weren't reproducing, and we weren't able to protect ourselves. And all of those things were essential for our survival as humans. So the fact that sleep didn't disappear, but instead became kind of a biologically non-negotiable part of our lives starts to tell us just how critical it really is. And that importance has not gone away in our modern life. It's actually become even more relevant. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But to answer your question, why is sleep so important to our health, especially in this phase of life? Well, sleep is when the body does its deepest repair and regulation. And I know that the repair part is probably really important to your clients and listeners who obviously care about staying healthy through workouts and strength training. And I want everybody to realize that the workout is the healthy stress we intentionally put on our bodies. This is when we're actually breaking down and tearing muscle fibers. But the rest and repair, which happens a lot during our sleep, is when the muscles actually repair, they get bigger, they get stronger. That is happening when we're resting, when we're sleeping. So you need both to get the results. And if you're not letting your body repair and you're constantly putting that strain on the muscles, you're going to burn out or injure yourself. So that's a point I especially want your listeners to understand as people who do work out and strength train as I do too. It's so important just to understand that it's not just that side. The sleep is part of that too.
I love that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is,
No.
I think, really critical. And I want to say it again for the people in the back that we tear down our muscle tissues and we need to repair them. So a lot of times those gains that we're seeking is actually happening in that resting time, that sleep, those days off. On this podcast, I'm a big fan of rest days, but I do think it's critical because a lot of people, when they start to work out, and I think we've talked about in our past too, they have this misconception that more is better with exercise and that days off actually will get in the way. Like when you look at things like Hard 75 and there's the emphasis on 2 workouts a day for 75 days in a row, we are getting the message so wrong. That's one of those kind of rewriting. And I love that you said that because you really did a great job of hitting the nail on the head where we can't get the things we're working hard on if we're not giving our bodies time to rest and repair. So thank you for saying that. Back to you.
Yeah, no, when I made that realization, it made a huge difference in how I work out because I was more on that rest day, but that's, means I'm not building my more muscle. No, you're actually not building your muscle if you're not taking the rest. And that was just a huge game changer for me and made a difference.
Totally. And I think it's something that women especially, but people, and honestly, I'm just anybody kind of, especially if you've been doing it for a while, needs to experience it to trust it. I could learn about it logically in my certifications and I could conceptualize why that would be correct, but I was freaked out to take rest days. I was very certain that I would be the exception and I would lose everything I'd worked hard on if I took a day of rest. And then I remember the first time I went on, after I'd really gotten into strength training, I went on a vacation and wasn't able to lift a weight. And I got back and obviously there's so many benefits to muscle, but just in terms of body comp, my body looked the healthiest and strongest that it ever had because I took time to rest, but I had to experience it first. So even that took me time to trust the process. And now I love my rest days.
Yeah. And it's actually a research fact that everybody thinks they're the exception for everything. In my world where I talk a lot about menopause and perimenopause, people think they're the exception and they're not going to go through it. And I was like, hopefully you will, because if you don't, that means you're dead. Right? You will go through it. So
this is good news. I talk about rest days. I'm like, girl, you get to rest.
Yeah, it's great.
Strength training.
Yeah. So that's a key factor I wanted to talk to you about sleep. But sleep is also when we balance our blood sugar, we calm inflammation, we regulate hormones, we consolidate memories, and we reset the nervous system, which is really important. It's not, so, this isn't passive rest. It's actually active biological work that our body is doing. And in perimenopause and menopause, this becomes even more important because women lose some of the hormonal benefits that we've relied on throughout our whole life because progesterone and estrogen are very beneficial and those start decreasing and getting wacky. And estrogen and progesterone support sleep. They support the nervous system and stress resilient. And as those hormones fluctuate and decline, the body becomes more sensitive to stress, blood sugar swings, inflammation, and sleep disruption. And that's why poor sleep in midlife doesn't just mean feeling tired. It often shows up as anxiety, irritability, brain fog, weight gain, stronger cravings, and that wired but tired feeling that I'm sure we've all had to deal with. And in fact, as we transition through this phase of life, sleep becomes one of the most powerful levers we have to actually support our long-term health. And this is where quality matters just as much as quantity, which you had brought up before. So it's important to understand, at least at a high level, that sleep happens in cycles. And as we move through the different stages throughout the night, we hit different benefits. So I'm not going to get too technical, but I do believe understanding what these phases bring, the benefits of them, explains why cycling through all of the stages is really crucial. So if you're okay with it, I want to talk real high level about the sleep cycle, just the stages for a minute.
I would love that because I literally was looking at my Fitbit this morning because I did not get a good night of sleep, and I was looking at all the cycles and I was like, wish I knew what this meant.
Yeah. Oh, and I have the Aura ring. I have it on right now. And that's one of those things, like, I believe if we can just pinpoint on a couple different, like, if you can look at just a few different factors and use that as your point of how well you're doing. Like, I look at my deep sleep every day. Like, how much deep sleep did I get? I also look at my HRV every day. Those are the two things I look at for me that I know, how I slept. Granted, I'm not going to let that dictate my day, but it gives me a good, or if I'm not feeling well, then I'll look back at it and be like, oh, I didn't get my deep sleep last night, or my HRV is out of whack. And so I think that's important. So, okay, good. I'm glad you're okay with me nerding out on this.
Oh, we love a nerd out on this podcast.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll dive into it. So when we get in bed and start falling asleep, we start with a stage called light sleep, which is the transition phase. And this is where the body begins to downshift. So your muscles are relaxing, your brain waves are slowing, and we move out of the alert mode we've been in all day. This is probably the phase where you pretty much still think you're awake, but you're starting to fall asleep. And this is especially important for women who struggle to fall asleep. They feel anxious. You had mentioned that earlier. You start to feel anxious about sleep because you're not sleeping well. Or they get that wired but tired feeling that I already mentioned. And in midlife, stress, declining progesterone, and dysregulated cortisol can make it harder for the body to fully settle here, which is why winding down in the evenings matters more than it used to. And we'll talk a little more about strategies on how to do that later, but that can kind of start a little bit earlier than when you get in bed. But after light sleep, we transition into a deeper, more stable stage of sleep. This is sometimes called core sleep. And this is when the heart rate and body temperature drop and the brain starts to organize information from the day. So memory consolidation happens here, which is why this stage is so important for learning, focus, and recall. And unfortunately, alcohol and late night screens are two of the biggest disruptor of this phase of sleep. So if you feel like you're having issues with those benefits you should be getting, like the memory consolidation, focus, learning, you could start to think, well, why is my core sleep getting disrupted? And it may be because of the level of alcohol or too much screen time at night. So
sorry, ladies.
Yeah, sorry, ladies. I know we hate to hear the facts. I do too.
Oh, okay. We'll definitely come back to that one too, because I literally was just having a client conversation where she was talking about how her doc was like cut down. She's like, I don't know if it's that important. So,
but I'm the exception. Yes. Okay. All right. So after that, we reach a deep sleep phase. So this is my favorite. Like I said, I look at this every day. This is the most physically restorative stage. And it's when our growth hormones are released, which is not just important for kids, but for adults too, because it's essential for that muscle repair we talked about, immune function, injury recovery, and overall resilience. This is when the brain clears out metabolic waste through the lymphatic system. So it's basically a nightly cleanup process of your brain, which is super duper important as we age. And unfortunately, deep sleep does tend to naturally just decline as we age, especially when sleep becomes fragmented. And when we miss out on it, we see more inflammation in the bodies, more fatigue, more insulin resistance, and increased appetite the next day. And this is because poor sleep increases ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, and lowers leptin, which is the hormone that signals fullness. So that's one reason sleep deprivation often leads to stronger cravings and overeating, if you've ever noticed that.
No, not me. Maybe someone I know, though. I'll bring it up.
I know those days where I feel like I got the worst night's sleep and I can't seem to get enough food.
It's never the food that I've meal prepped if I happen to meal prep. It's all the things that I put up a couple shelves up for.
Exactly. You're reaching up there.
Yep.
And so then the final stage of sleep, I'm sure we've all heard of it, it's REM or REM sleep, which is when we dream. So REM sleep supports emotional processing, mood regulation, creativity, problem solving, and memory integration. So when we're connecting new information with what we already know. So if you've ever woken up with that clarity or suddenly had the solution to a problem, there's a good chance that that REM phase played a role in your problem solving. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Like this book, I'm telling you, it explains how, everything we learn during the day is stored up in the front of our brain. And then at night, it's like shuffling through everything, throws out the unimportant stuff, sends the important stuff back to the long-term memory. Then that starts connecting with what we already have in there. It's like the filing system. Like our brain's amazing, y'all. Our bodies are amazing.
Yes. I love too, like, the light up that you get is the same that I get when I like start getting on about like muscle. So I love to see the passion. Sleep nerd came out. Woohoo!
My big sleep nerd. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I don't want to cut you off.
Oh no. I was just going to say one more thing about REM sleep I wanted to point out is that it's especially important in midlife because hormones are shifting and that can increase anxiety, irritability, and mood swings. So high quality REM sleep can help buffer those changes while poor quality REM sleep can really amplify them.
Dang. So I am mind blown. Sorry, but I'm like going to have to re-listen to this on my own because I'm like scrambling to take notes. I'm like, I'm just going to have to re-listen to you say all this because I love all of this. I had no idea each of those phases played such an important role in so many key areas.
Yep. And they're all different. So, all that to say, the big takeaway here is that sleep is not like just this optional rest time. It's essential biological work. And we didn't evolve to function on 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, no matter how much we want to normalize that. And, while 8 hours isn't always realistic for every woman in every season of life, if we support sleep quality and allow our body to cycle through these stages, it can make a profound difference in how we feel, function, and age. So think about quality means we get through these cycles. Whereas like if we're getting woken up in the middle of the night, we may cut off our deep sleep. We may not get to that round of REM sleep we need. We may miss a whole section of sleep that we need for the benefits that our body was evolved to give us and our brain was evolved to give us.
I just want everyone to like go back and re-listen to all of this like 8 times. So you really
save this episode, re-listen to it.
Seriously, save it because it's so, I have a couple questions that I'm going to just divert a little bit from, but when you were saying, you made a comment early on where we have a tendency to like sacrifice sleep for our early workout. The sleep is really the crux of health overall. Mm-hmm. So this is just like, I feel it too. Like this is something, and the reason I was so excited to have you on was because in my 20s and early 30s even, I was able to run on 4 to 6 hours of sleep. But as soon as I hit 35, honestly, that stopped being the case. Like I was just kind of all the things you said, and now I'm like, oh, which one was I missing? Was it the fatigue, right? So I'm curious, like with deep sleep, is that feels like that's one that's really tied to a lot of maybe perimenopausal symptoms.
Yeah, you mean not getting deep sleep?
Yeah, not getting deep sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is because, this is just so important for the reset that we need and the immune function and the, inflammation and when we get woken up, like we have to pee or we're having blood sugar crashes. That's really what a lot of it is that we're not properly controlling our blood sugar, which we need to do so much more in midlife, and we're crashing, and that's spiking our cortisol and waking us up, in the middle of our cycle of sleep.
Okay. I love it.
I think it's all of the phases, but deep, like I said, my favorite, most restorative, that's what's going to make you feel the best.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And now I'm going to start looking at that one. Do you know offhand, I didn't write this down, so if you don't have the answer, that's totally fine. Do you know what like a benchmark for amount of deep sleep to get, like what we should be shooting for every night?
Well, I think that it can be slightly individual. That's why if you do have a tracker, it's more like relatively speaking, like what days you feel good looking at it. But I would say if you can get an hour of deep sleep, you are bueno. So it's not like you need a ton of it, but you've got to get through those cycles to get all of it.
Okay, Cool. Thank you so much for letting me just like lob that one at you. Cause now I'm just asking for a friend.
Again, I know, caveat individuals. So you got to feel it out for yourself, but
fair. Okay. And that
level.
actually kind of brings us into the next one. Cause like I mentioned early on, the majority, I would say, especially of my midlife clients, but even my younger clients, I feel like nobody is getting 8 hours of sleep.
Right. Yeah.
I remember asking someone how they're right. I was like, how's your sleep? And they're like, oh, it's pretty good. I'm getting like 5 to 6 hours. And I was like, oh, yay. It sounds like that's up for you, which is great. I relate to that. So I would love to hear what you would say to a woman who isn't able to get 8 hours of sleep, whether it's because of symptoms, maybe it's because they've got kiddos that keep like hop in bed at night or whatever the case is. Yeah. And maybe start just honing the conversation a little bit more towards that, focusing on how to promote quality of our sleep.
Yep. And yeah, I think this is a great topic because I feel like every woman I start working with can't seem to get like the quote unquote enough sleep. And first I want to take a huge amount of pressure off right away, because that idea of 8 hours, like you said, the idea that it's the only way to be healthy has left so many women feeling defeated, and they hear sleep more or your health will suffer, and they look at their life and think, well, that's not happening at this point, so why even bother? But the truth is, it's not all or nothing. You got to focus on quality. 8 hours can be a helpful guideline, but it's not the requirement for health, especially in midlife. And what matters more is about the quality and how well your body's moving through those stages. And I've worked with many women who consistently get like 6 or 7 hours of sleep, but feel better and more energized and emotionally stable than women that get 8 or 9 hours of fragmented, low quality sleep. So if you can let's focus on how to get that quality. So, the ways I kind of think about how to get the quality instead of how to force yourself to get more sleep is start thinking about how to fall asleep more easily, how to wake up fewer times overnight, how to fall back asleep when you do wake up, and just overall how to feel more refreshed in the morning. And focusing on quality means supporting the things that can help your body move into that deeper, more restorative sleep. So stabilizing the blood sugar and calming the nervous system, eating enough of the right things during the day, and creating consistent cues that make it feel safe to rest. So if you want, we can go ahead and start kind of talking about some realistic ways that women can build this in.
I would love that. I was like, these sound great. What are they?
Yes. So what I like to do is I always like to find what's realistic for each individual person. Sure. And that can vary, but I can touch on some recommendations that tend to work for the busy midlife women that, a lot that I've worked with. And hopefully everyone here will hear at least a few things that will resonate without adding a lot of pressure of like finding the perfect bedtime routine. So the first thing I always say is that sleep support starts during the day, not at night. And what you do from the moment you wake up has a huge impact on how well you sleep later. That being said, even just a few minutes of morning light exposure without windows or sunglasses helps set your circadian rhythm and sends signals to the brain on when to release melatonin later that evening. Because that's when you go outside, you get the natural blue light rays in your eyes, and it says, okay, now it's morning. Now I know melatonin goes down and starts the lower end of the circadian rhythm for that. And in a healthy way, will start raising your cortisol. Cortisol is not a bad thing, and when it's cycling healthily. So getting outside for just a few minutes in the morning without sunglasses, not through a window, that can be very helpful. So this may mean for one woman going and sitting outside with morning coffee and taking off your sunglasses. Like for someone else, it may mean rolling down the windows as they take their kids to school or drive to work. That counts, guys. And even if you're just opening a door to your house and letting the light in, that's sometimes on mornings that's all you can do. It's freezing cold outside. Just do it for a few minutes,
I was going to say for all my Minnesota ladies listening, bundle up and
I know it's so hard depending on where you live sometimes, but I'm telling you, just get out there for a few minutes. It's really crucial to get that morning sunlight. It really will help gradually reset those sleep hormones that are so important.
Amazing.
So the next tip is eating enough. Oh,
Hi, Doug.
friends here.
Hey, guest appearance. We love dogs on this podcast.
All right. So next, eating enough of the right foods during the day is critical. Under eating, especially not getting enough protein and nutrients, can absolutely sabotage sleep by creating blood sugar crashes overnight. I kind of alluded to that earlier.
Dog
And
agrees.
so, I'm sorry.
I said your dog agrees.
She does. Thank you, Olive. So I tell people to start looking at labels and seeing how many grams of added sugar you're eating throughout the day. Can you cut that down by 10 to 20%?
Wow.
These little tweaks will help set you up for more stable blood sugar throughout the day and the night.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's another thing I think everybody can do. Look at the labels if you're not doing it. Added sugar is what you want to cut down. Now, let's talk about some simple evening strategies that can help tremendously as well. When it comes to evening, I encourage women to think less about a rigid routine and more about signaling safety to the body, because your nervous system needs cues that it is now okay to rest. Like, again, go back to the evolutionary, way we evolved. Like, we need to know it's safe before we go to sleep. There's not a tiger outside. So starting with dinner, and it may sound like a broken record here, but it's really important to support that blood sugar before bed. So make sure you have a balanced dinner plate with at least 30 grams of protein. Always have some fiber in there and a little healthy fat. And if you're going to have something sweet, eat that right after your meal. So not only will this create less of a blood sugar spike when you have the sweet, but it will allow more time for your food to digest and move through your system before you get in bed. So again, that sweet right after your meal is going to cause less of a blood sugar spike than if you wait an hour and then you eat it.
Interesting.
So
Is that just because you have all the other like protein and fat to help sort of slow
you've kind
release?
of lined your system. So the blood sugar, especially if you have some fiber in there, fiber acts kind of like a mesh in your gut
Love
and
that.
slows down the how quickly the more refined sweet food gets into your bloodstream, and it helps
Okay.
it move through your body better.
So we can
So
still eat our dark chocolate, just do it after dinner.
exactly. And dark chocolate is very healthy. So yeah, if you're eating the right stuff, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I have it probably every night.
Michelle,
So
you can stay.
yay! Part of the club.
Woohoo!
So ideally, you do want 2 to 3 hours between finishing your meal and bedtime. And that may seem for some people like crazy if that's not how they live right now, but just try to lengthen that time between your last meal and bed. You'll get that. You can get there eventually. And anything after that should just be plain water. Sparkling water is something nice if you like to sip on something, or calming teas. Otherwise, try to leave that 2 to 3 hours before bed. And then after dinner, start to create an environment that tells your brain it's getting close to bedtime. So this may seem insane to some people right now, but right after I clean up the kitchen, I like to immediately go wash my face and put my pajamas on. So this might be 7:30, y'all. I know it might sound crazy. Yeah. And I mean, sometimes I do have to go pick up my kids from like a late practice, so it doesn't happen all the time, but I get as close as possible. Like I might have my pajamas on under a hoodie, but I mean, shameful, I do. But so not only does that start to set the stage for rest, but it's one less thing I have to do later when I'm so ready to get in bed. So, seriously, does that sound crazy to you that I do that right after? Yeah, that makes me so happy. Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, give it a try. And a bonus points here for getting all that stuff done early is that it helps me not want to strangle my husband, because it takes him like 2 minutes to get ready for bed, and I'm in there for like another 20 minutes and I'm getting mad. That doesn't help your sleep. Mhm. It's just, yeah. It, yes. Yes. Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I always in for the PJs. Yes. And yeah, I love to look at everything through that evolutionary lens, because that does bring us back to, well, like how did our bodies become so smart? Well, millions of years of evolving, not the last 100 years of what we've put around us in modern world. So we really have to look back, and we have a lot of great things in our modern world. But when we're dealing with our health, we have to be realistic and think like this is not what we were meant to do. So, kind of on that, going more down that path, I also recommend that you dim all the lights around you. So at night, I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. Now think of that as like turning off the overhead lights, maybe turning on the smaller lamps, just getting it a little bit less bright. And also some other evening routines that can help really wind you down are stretching, foam rolling if you have a foam roller while watching TV instead of just, sitting on your butt. Sipping calming teas like chamomile and lavender, or any other bedtime blends, and just anything that kind of helps calm you down. And again, try your hardest not to scroll on your phone at night. And I admit, I will look at my phone. I don't put it away completely, but I don't let this become like time to just scroll until I fall asleep. I try to stay present with my family. I try to set a good example, especially now that both of my boys have phones. And, if you are looking at your phone or watching TV, consider getting some blue light blocking glasses. I know there's some really good brands out there, but if you want to give it a try, there are also some cheapies on Amazon. You can just give that a try before you make any big investment. See if it sticks. Every little bit helps. So that's another really good hack right there.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I'm already like anti-phone after what you said about it ruining one of our sleep cycles. So I'm like, get it out of there.
I
Just
know it's
scroll
it's so
through.
hard, but
It's
yeah,
That's
yeah,
so I love those. Those seem and I love this because it's all really practical stuff. And I feel like it's little things that people can try one at a time. And I think you just did a really nice job of like even just getting out in daylight. I feel like that's
yeah,
something we can take advantage of so easily, especially when it's springtime. But just like walking your
yeah,
dog. So this is thanks for making it seem a little bit easier.
yeah,
And I love that. We are kind of I want to respect your time, but
yeah.
is there like a quick answer to why some women or humans again wake up after sleeping 8 to 9 hours and just feeling completely tired? Because that's something that I know people talk about. I don't know if we have time to talk about that now or if we want to save it for another.
Well, I'll keep it quick, and yeah, we can talk about it another time if you want. But I really do think it's all about the quality, and they're not hitting all the phases. So again, like you said, these little things. It's never one thing that's going to fix everything. Okay, that's not how everybody wants to answer. It's
Right.
always the little things. So just incorporate a couple of these little things that seem doable for you, and you will start to get more of that quality. And once you get better quality sleep, everything else in life just starts to become a little bit easier.
Okay.
So.
This is great. What I'm hearing is don't panic if we're not getting traditional 8. There's a way to support ourselves with quality. And I'm going to be looking at my deep sleep going forward for sure because that
Good.
kind of blew my mind. Michelle, I can't thank you enough for both your time, for reaching out, for being the first experimental guest. You were such a delight to have. You made this so
It's such
easy.
an honor.
Set the bar really high. Now everyone's going to have to be as delightful as you. And like I said, it is Game Sees Game with passion, and it just comes through. And I'm so excited for people to listen, because I think you just gave it in such a digestible way, and you made sleep sound interesting, which I think is maybe part of the reason we kind of think it's boring, because I just thought we like shut down the lights, but now I realize there's so much more to go.
Talk to a sleep nerd. You'll find out so much.
Yes, like I said, and I'm going to look up that book too. I'll put it in the show notes as well. I wrote it down, so I'll make Why We Sleep. I'll put that a link in. So, yay!
I have it right. It's one of my favorites, so it's right here. Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker.
Awesome. And for people who aren't watching, it doesn't look that long, so you can handle it. And it sounds inspiring. Okay, thank you. Oh, say that again?
It's on Audible as well.
Oh, easy peasy. I love that. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. If there's one takeaway that you would leave our listeners with today, what would you think that would be?
I think it would be to prioritize sleep. Stop pushing yourself to do all the other things before you get the sleep, because once you do get that sleep component a little bit more down and you're getting that quality, you're going to be able to do those other things more efficiently, and they're not going to fight against you.
I think that's a great tip. I think as someone who has started leaning into their sleep, I can say from experience, it makes a big difference. So thank you again so much for your time and your expertise. I would love for people to know how to follow you, how to get your resources. Like I said, you've got that great podcast. I'm going to put a link to all of these resources, but why don't you just go ahead before we send ourselves on our merry way, give us some information on where people can learn more about you and the things you're working on.
Absolutely. Well, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. I'm the Inspired Wellness Coach. Also, my podcast is Inspired Wellness, and I have a website. It's theinspiredwellnesscoach.com. I do one-on-ones. I have a link there for a 20-minute free discovery call if you're interested in reaching out to me, or I also love to get emails. It's Michelle, that's MICHELLE at theinspiredwellnesscoach.com.
Amazing. She makes it easy. It's all Inspired Wellness Coach. Unlike me, I'm like, Kinsey, Fit After 40. So you're nailing it. Thank you so much. Definitely go check out Michelle's podcast. Like I said, I have been in this world for a while now, and I still get so many like amazing nuggets from your podcast. So thanks for everything you bring to the world, and thank you for your time today. Until next time, take care of your bodies, y'all. You're worth it. Root.